voice that cast a spell. When the needle drops onto the vinyl and the voice of Ronnie James Dio fills the speakers, it's not just music. It's sorcery. It's the call of a knight lost in a mythical world, summoning you to battle or to dream. It's a voice like no other. His real name was Ronnie James Padavona, but the world knows him as Dio. The name Dio, which means God in Italian, was inspired by a feared mobster, Johnny Dio, whose glare could paralyze. Later, Ronnie said, "It sounds short, strong, and memorable, and it commands respect." Not that he ever needed a stage name to earn respect. Today, we tell the story of a small guy from New York who became the greatest wizard of the metal scene. Ronnie James Padavona was born in 1942 in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, into an Italian-American family. From a young age, he was fascinated by classical music. He learned to play the trumpet and later bass guitar. He even trained in operatic singing for a while. But everything changed when he heard rock and roll. He formed his first band in the 1950s, the Vegas Kings. Later came Elf, a blues rock group with which Dio recorded several albums. It was Elf that opened the gates to his true future. A dream rises from the shadows. The real turning point came when fate brought him together with a man whose name every heavy music fan knows. In 1974, Elf opened for Deep Purple. That's when Ritchie Blackmore heard Dio and instantly recognized. This voice wasn't just a vocal instrument. It was cinema. It was myth. In 1975, disillusioned with Deep Purple's direction, too much funk and jazz for his taste, Blackmore left the band. He reached out to Dio, and Dio didn't hesitate. The result was the creation of Rainbow, starting with the debut album Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Then came the legendary Rising, released in May 1976 on Polydor Records. Produced by Martin Birch, who also worked with Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath, the album became one of the most revered hard rock records of all time. Rising was an epic in every sense. Symphonic in sound, with orchestral layers and Dio's incredible vocal power, the album was recorded in Munich in just 3 weeks. But in that short time, they defined a sound that would later be called epic metal. Tracks like Stargazer, Terra Woman, and A Light in the Black sounded like fantasy novels with thunderous soundtracks. Dio lyrics tackled themes almost unheard of in rock at the time: sacrifice, inner battles, and the search for meaning. He didn't sing about sex, booze, or cars. He sang about the soul. Fun fact, Dio recorded the vocal part for Stargazer in a single take. Music journalists still call it one of the greatest vocal performances in hard rock history. Blackmore wanted Cozy Powell's drums to sound like thunder on the horizon. The studio team even reinforced the echo effects to achieve that exact feel. Surprisingly, in the US, Rising didn't even enter the Billboard Top 100. But over time, it became a cult classic. Iron Maiden, Metallica, and Dream Theater fans often name it as the greatest hard rock album of the 1970s. In 2017, Rising was inducted into the Classic Rock Magazine Hall of Fame as one of the defining albums of its era. And the cover art, painted by Ken Kelly, the same artist behind Manowar and Kiss album covers, became a visual icon of the 70s. Clash of legends and a new path. Despite the success, tensions began to grow between Blackmore and Dio. Ritchie wanted more radio-friendly hits. Dio was drawn toward philosophy, fantasy, and artistic freedom. Songs like Long Live Rock and Roll were their last united battle cries. In 1979, Dio left Rainbow. He didn't make a fuss. No headlines, just a quiet departure towards something new. He knew the dream that was Rainbow had run its course. Later, Dio would reflect, Blackmore is a genius, but a genius who burns everything around him. Black Sabbath, light in the darkness. By the late 1970s, Black Sabbath was in trouble. Addiction, exhaustion, and the departure of Ozzy Osbourne had left the band adrift. Then fate stepped in once again. Tony Iommi, Sabbath's guitarist, was searching for a new vocalist. They met by chance in a restaurant. Iommi later recalled, "I just saw him come in. We chatted a bit, and 2 days later we were already writing music." Dio was nothing like Ozzy. Not in appearance, not in style. Ozzy was chaos and psychedelia. Dio was theater, myth, and the voice of a prophet. Their first album together, Heaven and Hell, 1980, was a triumph. It didn't just revive Black Sabbath, it redefined what heavy rock could be.
As the misty morning.
Tracks like Children of the Sea, Neon Nights, and Heaven and Hell were raw power wrapped in philosophical depth. Dio wrote lyrics on napkins in hotel rooms, drawing inspiration from mythology, the Bible, and literature. He obsessed over every word. Everything had to mean something. The Devil's Horns and the birth of an icon. Heaven and Hell became a sensation. Dio didn't try to replace Ozzy. He became something else entirely. A new voice for the band. Dramatic, symbolic, profound. Songs like Children of the Sea and Heaven and Hell became new anthems for fans around the world. One fascinating detail: the lyrics for Children of the Sea were written by Dio during his very first rehearsal with Iommi that very night. That song alone convinced Tony they had found the perfect match. The title track Heaven and Hell became one of the strongest metal songs ever written. In it, Dio speaks directly to the listener. You're not black and you're not white. You've got heaven and hell inside you. The album was released by Warner Brothers in the US and Vertigo in the UK. Climbed the charts. Number 9 in Great Britain, platinum in Canada, and gold in the United States. And this was a new Dio, powerful, commanding, like he had taken the helm himself. It was during this period that he introduced the now iconic devil horns gesture, the mano cornuta. In Italian tradition, it's a sign to ward off the evil eye. In metal culture, it became a universal symbol of unity, strength, and rebellion. One critic wrote at the time, "Black Sabbath no longer invites you to hell. They show you that it's already here, among us." And Dio sings about it in a way that makes you want to listen again and again. But not everything went smoothly behind the scenes. Bassist Geezer Butler was skeptical at first. "He's too theatrical," he said of Dio. Drummer Bill Ward, overwhelmed by the changes, left the band after the album was completed. Still, the audience embraced Dio as one of their own. His relationship with Ozzy Osbourne remained cold. They didn't speak publicly throughout the early 80s. Ozzy once said, "I hate what Sabbath became without me." Dio replied, "I didn't replace Ozzy. I created something else." In 1992, Dio briefly reunited with Sabbath for the Dehumanizer album, but old tensions resurfaced. He left the tour when he found out Sabbath had secretly invited Ozzy for a joint show. Leaving the past, building the empire. Not long after, tensions deepened among the original Sabbath members. The final straw was the mixing of the Live Evil album in 1982. Dio and drummer Vinny Appice were working on one version of the mix, while Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler worked on another. The creative divide became impossible to bridge. Rumor has it, Dio would sneak into the studio early in the morning to improve his vocal parts before the others arrived. Eventually, Dio left Black Sabbath. But this time, he left with a legacy, as the man who had saved a legendary band, and with a mission to build his own empire. Only in 2006 would the wounds begin to heal. Dio, Iommi, Butler, and Appice reunited under the name Heaven and Hell, showing the world that passion has no expiration date. Age meant nothing, their souls were still on fire. Holy Diver, Ascension, 1983. Ronnie James Dio formed his own band, Dio. Alongside him were guitarist Vivian Campbell, bassist Jimmy Bain, and drummer Vinny Appice. Their debut album Holy Diver became an instant classic. Ronnie finally had full creative control. Every word, every sound, Every image reflected his vision.
Dio explained.
Holy Diver is Jesus, Moses, Buddha, anyone who sacrifices himself for humanity. He initially didn't want to include Rainbow in the Dark, thought it was too lightweight, but the producer insisted, and it became Dio's first major video hit.
You know it always brings
From the opening track, Stand Up and Shout, it was clear Dio was no longer standing in anyone's shadow. Holy Diver, Don't Talk to Strangers, Rainbow in the Dark, each song became a metal anthem. The album went gold in the US by 1984, then platinum soon after.
it's the same
The
old
symbol,
song.
the message, the legacy. The cover art for Holy Diver was created by artist Randy Barrett. It sparked instant controversy. A demon throwing a chained priest into the sea. But Dio clarified it was the opposite. That's a priest casting out a demon. Never judge an album by its cover. And that famous devil horns gesture? Dio didn't invent it, but he gave it new meaning. He borrowed it from his Italian grandmother, who used it to ward off the evil eye. In rock culture, it became a symbol of protection, defiance, and unity. The Holy Diver era solidified Dio as not just a solo artist, but the voice of an entire generation. A symbol of fantasy metal, philosophical rock, and lyrical depth. But most of all, he remained true to himself. The album went platinum in the US and became one of the most quoted and respected works in heavy metal. It also opened doors for countless young musicians. Dio wasn't just a vocalist, he was a leader. He raised money to fight hunger and launched Here and Aid, a project uniting metal stars from across the world. MTV played his videos. His tours were wildly successful, and his band became a true team. He continued to release strong albums, The Last in Line, Dream Evil, Magica, Killing the Dragon, Master of the Moon. Even in the grunge-dominated 90s, when classic metal was pushed aside, Dio never wavered. He kept singing. He stayed loyal to his sound and to his fans.
Holy Diver, you've been down to
He always made time for his fans. One fan once recalled, "I was in a wheelchair. He came to me first. He knelt down and said, 'Thank you for being here. This is for you.'" The Final Bow, Eternal Flame. In 2009, Dio returned once more with Heaven and Hell and the album The Devil You Know. It was a powerful comeback, proof that his fire was still burning. But in 2010, the world lost him. Ronnie James Dio passed away, leaving behind a universe made of sound and meaning. His voice still echoes. His lyrics are still read. His albums are reissued. His songs are sung by new generations. Dio proved that to be a giant, you don't have to be tall. You just have to be real. Long live Dio, and may the rainbow over the stage shine forever. If you enjoyed this story and want more voices that can't be mistaken, hit subscribe, tap the bell, so you don't miss the next riff-heavy tale flying by like a Blackmore solo.